Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Spectator Sports. This is Sebastian Fonseca and I have a very special guest, my friend Dom from high school. And before we get into another loaded episode for you guys today, please like and subscribe to the channel. It makes a massive difference in the YouTube algorithm. Our Instagram and TikTok pages are also linked in the description, and the audio from this podcast will be uploaded to Spotify. Again, all links are in the description. And Dom, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? You're a big-time Ravens fan, and we go back to our high school days. We've known each other since like the ninth grade. Yeah. So since 2009.
Oh my God, don't say that. It's making me feel old. No. Yeah, so my name is Dominic Williams, but I go by Dom. I'm a therapist by practice, but I'm a sports lover, former athlete, Ravens fan through and through, and just been
collegiate athlete too.
Hey, listen, I retired. I retired on top.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Every so often, I still got some eligibility. I've been trying to get back out there.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can put my film out. I'll just tag myself at the end of this.
Just go to Salisbury's Pro Day.
You know the vibes, you know what I'm saying? Listen, I know some people need some offensive linemen. I can still kick step every now and then.
Absolutely.
So I do what I gotta do. I can be there. I can make it happen.
There's some bad O-lines out there.
Listen, I am always surprised by how the depth isn't there in the league as much as it used to be.
Not even. It's just a continuous need. You know, that's why it's a position where we need constant O-linemen drafted at the top. Like there's quarterbacks, but they're just kind of ineffective when you don't have an O-lineman, especially protecting that blind side. That's why you see left tackles drafted number one overall. We may not see that this draft. To get into some topics, I wanted to start off with Derek Carr signing with the New Orleans Saints, and really interesting move. I thought Derek Carr would probably be a better fit with the New York Jets, but there is a big if there because the Jets are looking for Aaron Rodgers. And at the time, the Saints seemed to have the best quarterback in the NFC South at that point in time. And I think it's a pretty nice move. But Dom, what are your thoughts on Derek Carr to the Saints?
Yeah, I think so. Automatically, that makes the Saints the best team in the division. Derek Carr has always been a weird quarterback to me because he's proven himself, right? He had that MVP caliber season a couple years ago before he got injured, and he's always been middle of the pack, not, mediocre, but not that person that necessarily moved the needle, not that person that would lead a team to a championship, but he's led teams to the playoffs. And, signing with the Saints, I think it is a good fit. It is a veteran quarterback that can, show there's weapons there with Olave, with Michael Thomas. They're actually restructuring his deal. I don't necessarily think it makes them contenders. I feel like
they'll be a playoff team. I think they'll be easily favorites to win that division because they do have still a very good defense. They just never had good quarterback play since basically Drew Brees retired, let's be honest. The last 2 years have been a mixed bag with Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, then Andy Dalton. Competent, but I think Derek Carr is certainly the better of the bunch, and I wish that like a guy like Sean Payton was still there. I think those two would have gone really well together, but still, he has a lot more talented cast, especially on defense, because a big thing when he was playing with the Raiders was that he did not have an elite defense. Despite having like Khalil Mack briefly, that was pretty much it. I mean, the whole collective unit that the Raiders offered on the opposite side of the ball when he was with the Raiders were just bottom third, I want to say, during his time in Vegas/Oakland. And they got chewed up, and a ton of times Derek Carr did everything right, but his defense just let him down time and time again. And I know it's hard with the rise of Mahomes in that last 4 or 5 years since they overlapped in their careers. The thing is that Derek Carr has had a revolving door of head coaches. When he started his career, he actually had Dennis Allen, his current head coach with the New Orleans Saints. Then there was Jack Del Rio, there was John Gruden, then Rich Bisaccia as the interim head coach, and then last year was Josh McDaniels. And they just didn't seem to get along, and that definitely led to the end of his Raiders tenure. So it will be interesting to see, but I think it's a nice move for right now for the New Orleans Saints. But obviously with the recent news with this trade with the Carolina Panthers, I think they have a chance to be the team of the future in that division. So going into the Panthers trade now, obviously we had breaking news earlier with the Bears trading down with the Carolina Panthers, and the Bears get a nice little package of picks, and they get to build around their young quarterback Justin Fields.
Love that.
I love that they included DJ Moore. I think that Moore's time in Carolina was coming to an end because he wasn't getting, adequate quarterback play, and he's still a very talented receiver. It just made sense to package him in with that deal. I think the thing is that the Panthers could have gotten a little bit more in return because they gave up 2 first-rounders, that's great, but then throwing in more, I think, the Bears had to give something there, maybe a third or a second. I think this is a win-win, like I said earlier. But what are your thoughts on the trade?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the other side of that. I mean, the Bears knocked it out of the park. I think they got a lot of great assets. I really love to see them investing in Justin Fields, just seeing them build that offense around him and him taking that leap. I just want to see what a full season of that looks like for him, especially adding these weapons, especially what they're going to do in the draft.
Right.
But from the Panthers side of things, I'm personally a little baffled because, being at 9, they were still in a position to get a good quarterback. There's been a lot of hype around Anthony Richardson lately.
He's an enigma. He killed the combine. Yeah.
But I also think that they are seeming to be in rebuilding mode after cleaning house last year. And
absolutely.
To give up more picks seems to be, antithetical to what I thought their process was going to be, because I thought they wanted to just bring in more young talent. And last year at the trade deadline when they were cleaning house, they were adamant against trading Brian Burns and adamant against trading DJ Moore. And they could have gotten a haul for DJ Moore, but to now just
it's kind of a throwaway piece to move up in this trade.
I just feel like they could have gotten more from him last year in terms of trading him out. And now they're just losing so much more. It just seems like that, how are you going to be saying we're moving up to draft a quarterback, but now who is he throwing to? It just don't seem to have a trusted target for whoever they're bringing in now. And so many times teams want to plug that quarterback in, but quarterbacks succeed a lot more when they're going into a better situation. If they have a number 1 receiver to throw to, or, someone to check the ball down to. But now you're just throwing this quarterback into this mess of an offense, and you don't have any assets to draft and build around him. And I'm not necessarily sure what their cap space looks like in terms of free agency. There's not a lot of free agent receivers on the market anyway, so
there's not a ton of free agents out there. I think positive is now there's still rumors of that they could also, now that they have the pick, they could also be open business to still trade down.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because there are teams that are still very hungry for quarterbacks. I talked about Houston, I talked about Vegas Raiders even. It seems right now, reports are as of Saturday morning, is that they really like CJ Stroud. I think he's probably the best pure passer in this draft, and he doesn't have a lot of question marks. But like you said, though, this brings up the question, who is he going to throw around to? That's the problem when you trade up. You give up the assets to build around the young quarterback, because this is the time to take advantage because they're on a really cheap deal. So they're going to have to hit some home runs in free agency. I do think, though, this trade makes them a little bit more of an attractive free agent spot. It's just a question of who they have. They do have some good O-line pieces because they drafted really well last year. But now they have to figure out who their receivers are. I think their backs were pretty solid. Trevor Hubbard and then also Stevenson as well. I don't know if they'll be back, but at least currently constructed, the running back room is fine. O-line is solid. Defensive line with Brian Burns is also there. They have J.C. Horn. So they have some fundamental pieces. I think now it's just getting a collective unit. So that's what free agency is all about now. So depending on the cap room situation, like you said, Dom, I think the Panthers still have a chance to dictate what they want to do. The 2023 class is also very stacked as well. I think with the Panthers taking that 9 pick, if they stuck there, they would have had a chance for Will Levis, Bryce Young, or whoever it may be at 9. Now that they move up, they can get their first pick, which I assume would be C.J. Stroud. The Houston Texans, I think, will take the next best prospect, and I think they really like Bryce Young, so they'll take him. Colts, I could see them definitely looking at Anthony Richardson. I think it just gives you more opportunities when you trade up, so it's still a win-win move. I think it just still favors the Bears just because they get the picks to build around Justin Fields.
Justin Fields executing in that offense, and he's proven that he can do it. It's just, can you do it over the course of a season while staying healthy?
I would see now what they can do with these extra picks is just build up the trenches. Now to talk about what's a very imminent deal, I think Aaron Rodgers will be leaving the Green Bay Packers to join the New York Jets. So let's talk about what this means for the Jets, and then move on to talking about how this impacts the Packers as potential forward team. On paper, I mean, the Jets are a very talented team. They just didn't have good quarterback play. Zach Wilson literally shit the bed a ton of times. Sorry. It's just what happened.
No better way to put it.
He was a guy... I said that he fleeced people with one throw at his pro day where he made some, across the body throw. It's great. And he's a great arm talent, but he's a very poor decision maker. So that's the big thing there. So he's clearly going to be relegated to the bench, and that's why the Jets are so hard on getting a guy like Aaron Rodgers. The problem is the AFC is such a scary conference, and just this division alone, you have Josh Allen, you have Tua.
Patriots organization.
But Patriots organization, it's not. I mean, Mac Jones is solid, but I think you still got to give him some respect. Yeah. They still own the Jets. They've swept them last year, so. It's a very stacked division, very stacked conference, and now you're only going to have to maximize Aaron Rodgers for maybe 2-3 years max. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to pull a Tom Brady and go into his mid-40s, but obviously early 40s, Aaron Rodgers is going to be available barring a catastrophic injury. What are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers potentially joining the New York Jets?
I think that this makes them the best team in that division. Really powered by Josh Allen.
We saw that in the playoffs. They got totally exposed.
Exactly. And the Dolphins without Tua just really couldn't bring it together either. But I think as an entire team, like the Jets just were a quarterback away. I think they had a top 5 defense, and that's just bona fide.
Yeah. They were 7-10, so they got a bulk of those wins despite the play of Zach Wilson.
Like they just an excellent team. And then offensively, they have so many weapons that just could not get the ball in their hands. I would just love to see Garrett Wilson with a great quarterback.
Competent quarterback.
He's going to light it up. But then we forget about on the other side, Elijah Moore. He had a great rookie season too, and then kind of faded away because no one was feeding him the ball.
And then don't forget about Breece Hall.
I just want to see him healthy, man.
Breece Hall was a game changer for them. That's why they went 5-2, and then he tore his ACL. The wheels really fell off for the Jets.
They decided that they're not going to be bringing back James Robinson, which is fine. But Zonovan Knight had a couple flashes. Yeah. And Ty Johnson also had a couple flashes as well.
Former Terp. Ty Johnson.
Vibes. Yeah. He's neither of them are going to be the bell cows, but I think that they can have a confident running game until Breece Hall comes back and just brings that spark.
Breece, I think, will be back for the start of the season, so that's going to be a huge help for them. They have a talented receiving corps. Don't get me started with that defense. Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner are all pros at their respective positions. I mean, the fact how Sauce Gardner has started off his career, rookie year, Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Kind of like their second coming of Darrell Revis.
I didn't want to say it. But like he's heir apparent. He really took the reins. He really carries that torch. I mean, he came in with that sweat, calling himself Sauce, and he lived up to the hype. I like the chain. The chain, man. That man, he's living up to the hype. Yeah. I really love to see him be able to back up that talk with some excellent play and
the cheesehead stuff when they went to Green Bay. He has a lot of swagger to him. You need that at that position. All the great corners are not just a quiet guy. They have some swag to them. They talk a little drunk. They get in receivers' faces. They also have some pretty good Twitter game too in the modern day.
Back to the Jets. I really think that they were already competitive. I think they split with the Bills last year.
They did. Correct? They beat the Bills at home. They got shellacked the second time around, but the Bills they're gonna be showing some chinks in their armor, and I think they're not going to be the same team. Their window could be closing, if not already closed. He's going to tear people up. So I think they're just right behind the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I was under the impression they were a B team that had an A season. Like they were
last season. I think that
they kind of proved that they validated themselves as a top tier team, and I kind of had to eat my words a little bit as they tore my Ravens apart, which is fine. But I think that going into the season it was Bills. Everybody picked the Bills to win.
Oh yeah, they were the betting favorites. I don't blame them. It's a loaded roster. You bring in Von Miller. You have a pretty stacked team. You think with the Chiefs losing Tyreek Hill, this is your opportunity. You got to go. The Chargers made a bunch of moves because they know that
great on paper as well.
Yeah. So a lot of teams made moves thinking the Chiefs were vulnerable, but the Chiefs are just fine, as they just proved again winning the Super Bowl.
Well, let me ask you this: what do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to do for the chemistry of the Jets, because I think that a lot of people rallied around Mike White. A lot of people kind of were out on Zach Wilson. They just,
I think they were more anti Zach Wilson, and then like whoever. I mean, even when Joe Flacco was starting, they were fine. The thing was Zach was he didn't show accountability.
Yeah.
He was smug. He was blaming the wind in a couple of games. I'm like, dude, you're in the NFL. Like this is
you're supposed to be a strong arm quarterback.
Yeah. You're supposed to get through the elements. You're playing in New York. You also played at BYU. That's in Utah. It's not like there's all sunshine and roses over there in Utah. The lack of accountability just put a sour taste. We heard Garrett Wilson showing a lot of frustration. And right now already on Twitter, Sauce is recruiting Aaron. I think they're going to be fine. The question is if Aaron just is committed, because that's the thing. Yeah. Once he got that deal last year with the Packers, he kind of just sat around, and then he didn't want to show up for these new receivers, and that showed these chemistry problems we saw early on with these new young receivers they were trying to integrate, and then they caught fire later, but it was a little too late. Aaron Rodgers is a very prickly personality. Yeah. I would say he's kind of like the Kyrie Irving of the NFL. It's very similar, a lot of hot takes. They're both, they have some interesting, they're very, adamant on their claims and opinions, which is fine, but I think it leads the way from what they're trying to do in their sports. Now, we do know the Jets have been a very suspect organization. They have been, they've had the longest playoff drought in the whole entire NFL. Since the Mark Sanchez days. I think it's kind of changed, so we'll see what happens. Robert Saleh is a very good mind, and I think he'll be really on Aaron Rodgers to make sure he stays on task. It just depends if Aaron Rodgers is going to be drumming at the same beat of the Jets players. So we'll see what happens. But right now, so let's talk about the Packers side of things. Now, it just seems they made moves about 3 years ago to draft or even trade up for Jordan Love. That caused some division. Even motivated Aaron Rodgers to get 2 whole MVPs out of spite. So we'll see what happens now with the Packers going with Jordan Love as the quarterback. On paper, not a huge sample size, but in limited action last year, I saw if the Packers were trending in the downward direction, I was thinking bench Aaron Rodgers and start Jordan Love and see what you have there.
I think Jordan Love is gonna be good. I think there's definitely
there's something there.
Yeah, right. I don't see them taking another quarterback or anything like that. I really think that, especially the way that Christian Watson came alive last year with Aaron Rodgers, I think that there's pieces around him that can make Jordan Love power this offense. They're definitely not going to be as competitive considering he's not Aaron Rodgers.
It's a down year.
Yeah, but I think that there's something there. Been on the bench for a couple of years to really kind of soak it in. I can't speak to how well of a mentor Aaron Rodgers has been to him, but I do think that, given his opportunity, he can make something happen. I'm just really excited to see what this next chapter is. I don't know. I feel like we've been waiting to see what's the holdup, what's he got, and when he was out there, it didn't look like a train wreck.
No, even that one game he substituted for Rodgers and they played against the Chiefs, I think it was 2 seasons ago, he looked competent. So I'm curious. I'm not sure. I actually I'm a lot more confident in the limited action I've seen from Jordan Love than I am with Trey Lance. He just shows a lot more upside. I think the chemistry, because probably Christian Watson started off on the second team, taking second team reps with Jordan Love in training camp. So they have a little bit of chemistry. They're obviously going to build on that this offseason. And the Packers still can make some moves now once they close out. They're going to get some picks back from the Jets. Now they're gonna, I'm sure, at least a couple firsts, some seconds in there. I don't know what the package would be, so that can build around Jordan Love as well. As much as we want to dismiss the Packers, and like we said, the NFC North is entirely wide open. The Packers could have a chance to essentially retool, not just go into a full-on rebuild.
Well, something that I want to see out of Jordan Love is risks. Because while Aaron Rodgers' numbers were great, there was a lot of risk aversion. He didn't throw a lot of picks. Right. He didn't throw a lot of picks because he wasn't throwing a lot of challenging passes. Because he needs to go in there and make plays, I want to see him take that opportunity to do some things that we haven't seen out of that offense in a while and really try to make it a little bit more explosive. Their defense is a little suspect at times, but
I thought that was going to be their calling card last year because they've been historically good, but they took a step back. So, but I think they can retool that defense with the picks that they're getting in free agency. So we'll see what happens there. I think overall the roster and the future of the Packers is in very good hands.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that getting Rodgers out of there is going to be good for the organization because they were really butting heads. I think it was him or Rodgers at one point. It was like somebody's going to have to go.
And
but
a lot of the, press conferences that they had, it was just very wishy-washy. You could see that, the writing was on the wall. Aaron Rodgers is either going to retire or he's just not, he's going to be traded. So the Packers were done with him. They just were wondering,
over it.
Are you retired or are we going to actually get something back? So, John, you're obviously a local Ravens fan, a long time Ravens fan. Got to see, at least from our high school days, you got to see that nice championship back in 10 years ago.
Yeah,
actually. So a similar situation now with another nice quarterback looking for a contract extension. We saw 10 years ago when Flacco got his extension. It kind of made the cover very bare, and a lot of those championship pieces left. So with Lamar, what do you think his contract negotiations will be? Because he just got slapped on with the non-exclusive tag, which is, I guess with the modern dating age, you're saying we're together, but we're not exclusive. I'm gonna keep my eyes out, and if I see something better or I can upgrade, I'm gonna do it, and that's where the Ravens are kind of taking it on. But your thoughts on Lamar's contract situation?
Yeah, every time I think I have this situation nailed down, something else comes out that just throws me for a loop. I really am not sure what to think or what to feel about this, because I think one of the biggest issues in trying to analyze the situation is that a lot of information isn't coming from within. There's a lot of speculation. With Lamar not having an agent, there's not a lot of communication with the media, right? That's the people that are really typically
other than the subtle subtweets and stuff. He's very cryptic on Twitter.
Yeah. And as an organization, the Ravens typically like to keep things in-house as well.
Yes.
I think a really great example of that was with that Hollywood trade last year, where everyone was kind of surprised, but everyone else was like, oh no, we've been talking about this for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
That's
a testament of the Ravens organization. I mean, with Ozzie Newsome and then their new GM taking over the reins there, they've been such well-rounded and very tight. So I know you don't see controversy until just now. I do think they slightly mishandled some things for sure, but go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so about 10 days ago, I kind of landed on this idea where I was just like, screw it, right? Just take the leap, give him whatever contract he's asking for, and we don't know what he's asking for. I don't necessarily think he's being lowballed. I think it's this thing where their idea of what his value is different than what he thinks his value is.
It's a difference on the guaranteed money. I think that's the biggest thing. Players want security because it's a very rough game, and your career could just end just like that. Exactly. So I understand both sides. We haven't heard that, like you said, come out of his mouth or from his Twitter account. So there's not any public statements on that. They could very well just be a rumor. I just think that he definitely wants guaranteed money north of $200 million.
And to speak on that Deshaun Watson thing a little bit, is that I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that wasn't originally on the table. Like, the Browns didn't have to do that. They were originally out of the running. I think they narrowed it down to the Falcons and the Saints. And then the Browns came back with this ludicrous deal, this unimaginable deal that nobody else was going to match. And he was just like, okay, right? Like, that wasn't part of the negotiations.
The Browns were just that desperate.
They were
doesn't matter about the off-the-field issue. They were big time on, just making sure that they get their quarterback,
But I would love to know what Lamar's thinking, because, he deserves more than Kyler. He deserves more than Russ. I think that they were trying to work out a deal within that range. Historically, I do tend to be on the side of the players, right? I do want people to get their money. I do want to see players, know their worth. But I guess I'm curious what he thinks his worth is. I'm curious as to, I don't think that the Ravens are dumb enough to not pay him. But maybe he's asking for something that is just so ridiculous that they just feel unwilling to pay him.
Right.
And that's why I was kind of like before, screw it. You have good faith. Like, if you pay him and the team kind of falls apart because we don't have the money to pay the other pieces and we try to rebuild to the draft, I think that as an organization, they've built up so much goodwill that not only is it going to be good by the fans, but if we have to rebuild, I think having the trust and the comfortability and having Lamar there is going to make that process a lot better.
Yeah.
But then that report came out from the NFLPA about they gave out those report cards for each team.
Okay.
And the Ravens, I think, had the lowest or in the bottom 3 for
no, it was
training
the Commanders were at the bottom.
Well,
but
they were at the bottom in terms of the entirety
okay.
of the report card. But the Ravens, the training staff was one of the lowest. They were bottom 3, and especially with a lot of people's concerns about Lamar's injury history, just seeing how the team's lack of, I don't want to say commitment, they were really tied to some people that weren't doing their players well. I mean, we saw a lot of players come out on Twitter tweeting about former strength coach Steve Saunders, talking about how how he extended players' injuries due to their workouts or weren't catering individual plans to players, or talking about how players were seeking workouts outside of the organization due to feeling like he was irresponsible. And it just kind of seemed like the goodwill started to deteriorate for the Ravens, where for so long they had been seen as this really competent, really strong organization that really valued their players. And now we're hearing all these whispers about they're not who we thought they were. So with this kind of coming out at the same time, it's really making me really skeptical about how they are handling this situation. It just continues to add to the confusion. Like, I'm not sure who to trust here. I'm not sure who to root for. I'm not sure who could be in the wrong in the situation. I thought the Ravens were too smart to let this guy kind of walk, but now it's like, what's really going on behind closed doors? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's just such a tricky thing too. You don't know who's right, who's wrong, who's saying what exactly. We know that from the summer, pretty much they were trying to get this hammered down, and like the longer this draws out, the more increasingly uncomfortable it gets for both sides. I think the biggest thing is Lamar needs to figure out like what he wants, what's the best fit for him. I would say that with the Ravens getting the new OC and they asked for Lamar's input on that, is showing that they are still on some good terms. And the only thing was now the back end of the season that it feels like he kind of held himself out. And I would do that, honestly. I don't think that's anything wrong with Lamar to hold himself out, because as soon as you get dinged up, if you come back, you can make that worse. That's just only going to give the organization more power, and they're going to decrease that offer that you're trying to get. I just think bare minimum, he's worth more than Kyler Murray money. So the jury is still out on what exactly will happen. I think at the end of the day, the Ravens will get it done, but definitely the concerns are about that report card about the training staff. That's a big, wild card there, because, players need to make sure that they're actually being taken care of for whatever the team is actually looking out for their best interests, not the organization's best interests.
And so to talk about the tag, right? So with the non-exclusive tag, allowing him to go out and seek, deals from other teams.
Ravens can match too.
Yeah, give him the opportunity to
essentially
match.
Restricted free agency of the NFL.
Yeah. I thought that it was a good idea from a business decision, right? Yeah. Just to be able to see, because, let the market dictate your value. Like, we're saying that we think this is your value. If you think it's higher, let's see what other people also going to offer you. From a business standpoint, I think it's smart. I think that, hey, we can't find any middle ground, so let's have some other hands come in here to help us find the middle ground. I don't think that it's kind of disrespectful in any means. I think that's just the way that business works out. But I do think that it has or may have impacted Lamar's relationship with the team, because he wants to be here. I think
he gave it everything he had, and I think that's the thing where like things were really good years 1 to 2, if not 3. And then next thing you know, things just kind of fall off the rails when it's the contract negotiations. So, I wouldn't say there's bad blood. I just think it's just very untrying. It's like very uncomfortable times, uneasy. It's like nervy times.
With this whole free agency saga, I'm starting to get really uncomfortable because, you're hearing rumors about that C word, right? That collusion. People are talking about wink, wink, nudge, nudge, where more and more teams, we obviously can't accuse them of anything like that. But
well, they're just I think you're getting at the point they're so publicly out on pursuing Lamar, which is very, very, I've never seen that before. Yeah. We've never seen this with people saying that they're out on other quarterbacks.
That quickly, too, the same day or the day of. They haven't even kind of contacted him.
Especially like the Falcons. I thought that was the big... If he was going to leave, that was the team that would pony up whatever the assets may be to get him.
I think... it might have either been Schefter or Rappaport recently reported that they're hearing that no teams are planning to offer him a deal. The word around the streets is that no teams are prepared to offer Lamar Jackson a deal, which is baffling. And again, it just continues to add more support to the rumors that there might be some wink, wink, nudge, nudge collusion. I think that,
no, nobody wants that. But it's just a question of is that what Lamar wants too?
Yeah, nobody really knows.
We don't
what
know
he's
if that's
asking
confirmed
for.
from Lamar. And the thing is, going back to this whole collusion thing, is it this that the Ravens are providing this information because they don't want to share Lamar, or like are they bringing out like bad medical reports because they know something because these trainers have been working with him? Don't know. I mean, the strangest thing is though that teams were publicly stated that they were out on Lamar that need quarterbacks.
Yes.
It's very odd, nonetheless.
Right, where I definitely I feel like 2 firsts is a bargain for a quarterback of his caliber.
An MVP.
Yeah. This is the most attractive free agent ever. He's young, he's productive, he's an MVP, he's
just
a durability.
That's just been the last 2 years. Durability has been the only question,
right?
And they're very fluky though.
And the issue about the durability is the flukiness of it, where it's not necessarily tied to his athleticism. Considering both times he got hurt in the pocket, he wasn't hurt scrambling. I mean, you look at someone like Josh. It's not the accumulation
of hits.
Yes.
Yeah.
You look at someone like Josh Allen who runs around like a freight train and gets knocked around.
Literally, like barely. He intends for contact. Yeah. Lamar is slippery.
Exactly.
And so, like the whole mantra that dual threat quarterbacks don't deserve to be paid as pocket passers. First of all, the pocket passer is dying. It's actually becoming slowly extinct. People just don't want to admit that. And then the dual threat quarterback, yes, they're going to be taking on more hits, but also the medicine has been evolving now that they can recover from those hits. But a lot of these hits are actually coming from the pocket and maybe due to bad offensive line.
$32 million a year is insulting, especially considering the Daniel Jones deal. So I'm really hoping that
it's funny how that deal can get done so quick after like 1 year of like, okay, you're not like a fumble machine.
Exactly.
Just
but Lamar's a little bit of competence. Just not turning. Daboll being there was a great hire also. Just changing the offense.
He's become a quarterback guru. And we've seen the elevation of Daniel Jones and then the somewhat progression of Josh Allen. So.
The historic leap that Josh Allen took. No one's ever looked like that before.
For basketball, we're rounding into form with the postseason just about a month away. KD arrived on the scene, but just like kind of the recent misfortunes he's had pretty much post-Achilles KD, he's gotten dinged up again on a really fluky warm-up. Seems like the mob boys are not really doing their job. No. Apparently, they make $80K a year.
You're lying. There's no way.
No. I looked at NBA mob guys. They make $80K a year, and that's also a seasonal gig. So somebody dropped the ball or they dropped the mop on that, and now KD is going to be out for possibly the remainder of the regular season. But as long as he's available postseason, I think the Suns are still a very dangerous team because they got pretty good production. It seems that Devin Booker is doing just fine after his little growing injury. So what are your thoughts on a very stacked Western Conference that is continuing to flip-flop from 1 week the Clippers were in the play-in tournament to now they're well safe of the play-in tournament? But what are your thoughts on the Western Conference?
I still think the Suns are the favorite. I think that while the chemistry is somewhat of an issue. They looked excellent in the 3 games that he was there.
He's the seamless fit.
Yeah, like no matter where he
it's
goes.
so easy to install into any offense. He doesn't need the ball.
And I mean, just having players of that caliber, the way that they were able to keep Ayton in that trade, I thought he was going to definitely be a piece of that. But allowing the 4 of them on the floor at once just seems unstoppable. That seems like something you do in an NBA micro, NBA, my team thing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
seeing all of them there, yes, the seating might get a little wonky. Everyone's really tight together right now, but if he can come back in the first round, or even I think they might be able to survive the first round. If he comes back in the second round, they still are gonna be, the favorites right now because the West is wide open. I think that right now Denver's the one, and I think that love what they're doing, love what Jokic is doing, but they just have to prove it to me.
Right.
They don't have.
Agreed.
They just historically have always been a great team, but just can't get it done in the playoffs. I think Memphis is done.
Agreed.
I think that while they can be a good team without Ja, they're not a championship team without Ja. And I think that not only missing his presence, but missing, just the drama that has kind of been over that team right now, it's going to be a little bit too much to overcome. I'm really excited about the Kings. I just love seeing the Kings be good.
Same, yeah, they've risen to the number 2 seed.
They're at the 2 now.
They are the 2 seed because of Memphis' recent slide after Ja has taken a step back. While we do need to see more come postseason time of the Nuggets, they've still been able to handle business. Now, we do get to see a couple games against the Suns. I wish Durant was available, but it seems very likely that those 2 teams would be on a collision course in the second round rather than the conference final based on seeding. Now, depends. It's been flip-flopping all around, but I do think the Nuggets are still the favorite just because they've proven it. They've been able to prove it against a bunch of different teams. They have a great surrounding cast, and this is slightly different because Jamal Murray is back, because Michael Porter is healthy, because Aaron Gordon is available as well. It's not just like Jokic having to carry the whole entire team. The Nuggets are a very talented team, and I think with this, they'll be able to at least get to the conference finals as long as the only team I see beating them is the Phoenix Suns, and that could end up being the second round. So it's like a low-key an early round exit, but it's kind of like with an asterisk because the Phoenix Suns are such a vaunted, talented team.
I hate to be that guy, but you always got to look at the Warriors, too. I think last year we were kind of in that same position where no one was really checking for them, but they caught fire at the right time, and Steph Curry really elevated his game. And I think, yes, he was injured for a while, but he's back healthy, and I think that allowing, just their championship pedigree, just having that, they've all been here before. And while no one's really picking them, I think that's where they really want to be.
Yeah.
Is that they get the right matchup, they just catch on fire. The Warrior third quarters are always going to be deadly. So,
third quarter Warriors have been a legendary avalanche.
Klay Thompson's come back into form because he had a rough start to the season. So, I'm really just keeping my eye on them because I'm not necessarily confident in them, but we weren't confident in them last year either. So.
I think it's slightly different this year, Dom, because with the Warriors, they haven't been able to prove it on the road, and that's the thing. They won't have home court advantage. They won't have the luxury of being a top 4 seed like they did last year. They were a 3 seed last year. And they got lucky because a couple of times, at least the matchup-wise, at least they faced like inexperienced teams like the Memphis Grizzlies. So I think there's a chance they may even be in the play-in tournament as like a 7th or 8th seed. I think they get out of it and be like a 6th seed and hope that they end up playing like the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round.
I'm picking the Suns because on paper they just seem like the best of me, but I could really see so many teams do something. I feel like even the Mavericks right now, who's going to play defense, right? But at the same time, Luka was able to
be the Alice. There's no D.
There's no D. Luka was able to bring him to a conference finals appearance 2 years ago by himself, and I think
last season.
It was last season. Having Kyrie there to just give that extra boost in scoring now. Is that going to work out in terms of chemistry, considering they have very similar play styles, being ball dominant?
It's like a your turn, my turn kind of deal. I'm high on them too. The defensive concerns are there. Again, it just comes down to matchups. The West is really wild from seeds 4 to 5. 4 to 10 actually, including the play-in teams. So
there's probably like a 5-game difference between.
It's actually, I think, 2 in certain scenarios.
Yeah.
So like if you go on a losing streak, you could even be out of the play-in tournament entirely. So you gotta hope that injuries like to your best player don't happen right now. You don't want to just keep doing the same thing. You can afford like a loss here and there, but like a losing streak could be devastating. Look at the Pelicans.
Yeah.
They just nosedive without Zion.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're such a talented team, and it's a shame that we may not be able to see him because he, again, seems to have suffered a setback, and he's going to be out like 2 more weeks more than expected. Yeah. And I'm not sure what that's going on because I understand like knee, foot injuries for the weight issues that he's had just because of the impact. Hamstrings are very interesting. I thought that's like an explosive thing that you do when making a cut or a jump. So I'm not sure exactly where the hamstring falls into because I don't think that's necessarily due to his weight. Yeah. It's just like a very fluky injury that just seems to be bothering him for the rest of this season.
But even outside of his weight, Zion's, this is the best shape he's been in, right?
Yeah.
He dropped a lot of weight. He just looks a lot more athletic, which, I mean, he's an NBA athlete. What does athletic mean to me? But at the same time, this is the best version of him we've seen the first couple of years. He's kind of really rounded in the shape, but to still see those injury concerns kind of linger is really worrisome to me. I'm really glad to see that he can be productive. We're not seeing another Greg Oden or anything like that, but I just want to see him make it through a season and, you know, lead his team to something meaningful because when he's on the floor, he's so dominant. Like, he's doing what we expected him to do. He's just not there. It's just very limited little
spurts. Yeah. And I thought even for like December before he got hurt, he was in the MVP conversation because the Pelicans were the top seed. Now they've fallen. That's basically due to his injury. But if they get into play-in tournament, I think that's like a salvation for this season. And they got to hope for next season that he's just been able. He's got to be available for 60 games. I think that's like a goal that you can expect out of Zion, hopefully, for the next season. The Lakers are looking also pretty good. I mean, their recent victory with D'Angelo Russell coming back, he was a very good piece from that trade in that 3-team deal with Utah and Minnesota, and I think he's been really good for them. So if they can right the ship, let's say they get out of the play-in tournament, and I mean, they'd end up probably playing, I think you got to hope that they played the Kings, right? So do you think they, A, make it out of the play-in tournament, and B, do they make some noise in the postseason if they qualify?
It really comes down to health because, I mean, I'm really glad to see Anthony Davis doing his thing. He's really asserted himself the last couple games, which is like that's what we needed him. I think everybody's been saying that they wanted Braun to take a step back and AD to be that number one and be that dominant guy to be
He's
that guy.
Supposed to.
Yeah,
that was like 2 years ago.
That was supposed to be what he was supposed to do, and he just hasn't really taken the reins the way he was supposed to. But recently he's split the switch, especially with Braun not being there. So
it's a little different,
Yes, I'm hoping that if Braun can come back and AD continues to play at this level, they're going to make some noise. Like, those trades really elevated them more than I thought they were going to. I had some concerns about fit because Lakers always needed shooters, and D'Angelo Russell, I thought, wasn't that guy who was going to move the needle. He's
streaky, but Malik Beasley's been the extra shooter, and then it's kind of allowed Austin Reeves not to be the only shooter that they need. Because now I'm seeing a lot more Austin Reeves taking things off the dribble. I saw a couple dunks, actually, so... it turns out Don Whiteman can jump. So
hey, Mac McClung already held it down for them. I'm not even going to question that. That's my boy. The Lakers have a shot to. I'm not picking them to go deep in the playoffs, but I got them. They can win a series. I think they can.
Depending on the matchup.
Yeah, depending on the matchup,
everything's going to be flipping around, and we won't. I don't think it's safe to make a prediction until we actually have like the final matchups.
Everything is so fluid right now.
In the blink of an eye, you could wake up the 5 seed and then be out and be in the play-in tournament the next day, depending on how the results stand for that night.
But I think that they have the pieces. Like they won a championship, and I think that while a lot of that team isn't there anymore, Braun and AD really holding it down. Having those two players is always going to make you... It's
a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't count out a healthy LeBron and AD.
Yeah. And I know I mentioned the Warriors earlier, but I think part of last year, they were brought to the brink with Memphis with Ja's injury going down. That really flip the tide. So even with whatever matchup they get, health has been an issue. We've seen players go, I mean, with the Lakers, we've seen Braun and AD struggle with injury. We just talked about Zion struggling with injury.
Let's talk about the Eastern Conference. The Milwaukee Bucks have now kind of usurped the Boston Celtics. They've been in a little bit of a slide. So now it seems like they will be the top seed unless something happens in the next month for them to lose that. What are your thoughts on the Eastern Conference? Because they're also flip-flopping because you have the Celtics, you have 76ers in there. The Cleveland Cavaliers I don't think are there yet, but they are still a very talented team. Fun team to watch. The Knicks are also fun.
Yeah,
but
they're hot right now.
They're hot, yeah. What are your thoughts on the Eastern Conference?
I think it's a 3-horse race. Like I think it's Milwaukee, the 76ers, or the Celtics. I'm really glad to see the Celtics really keeping it up after Ime Udoka left. I thought that, he was a great coach, but Joe Mazzulla has kind of proven himself this year and not let them slide like they used to. Jason Tatum really took a leap. He was in the MVP conversation. He was the leader for a while.
I would say until the holidays he was that, and it kind of just got taken him out of the running. Then when they started to go in a little bit of a slide. So
I would really love to see the 76ers complete the process, right? I think that Embiid has taken it to another level. I mean, everybody, there's the
at least conference finals, right? That's
right.
the thing. They haven't gotten back past the second round. Getting that 1 seed in the East is so vital. You only have to play the Celtics or the Sixers. You don't have to play both of them. If you're stuck in that 2-3 spot, the 3 is the worst because then you don't have home court against either one of them. The 1, you have home court against both, and you only have to play 1. The 2, you have to play both, but you at least get the home court against the 3. I don't know how the standings are exactly now. I know that the Celtics still have a little bit of an edge over the 76ers, but I wouldn't be surprised if the way the Sixers are playing, I mean, they just picked up a nice win against the Bucks. They're hitting their stride. They have a softer part of the schedule. They had a nice win against the Trailblazers last night. They played the Wizards coming up on Sunday. So I think the opportunity is there for the Sixers to at least make the conference finals. And they match up pretty well against the Milwaukee Bucks. It's just a matter of can they get past the Celtics.
All right, so with the West being wide open, is there anybody in the East that you think could be a team to watch or a surprise team?
No, I think, like you said, it's a 3-horse race. I like what the Knicks and the Cavs are doing. It's just not enough. It's very top-heavy compared to the West, and it's completely wide open.
With the 76ers, it's really interesting to see how James Harden is going to show up in the playoffs because he's kind of looked like older James. He's not going to be MVP James Harden, but he looks like a nice facsimile of himself, right? Like, he is producing at a level that is a legitimate number 2 again, right?
Yeah. So, and that's all he needs to be. He needs to be a distributor, and he needs to be a guy that you can get 25 points on a given night. And that's not asking a lot. Both of those guys, they get a lot of free throws because they are very good at drawing fouls. So I would see them being a very dynamic duo. And I think against the Celtics, they match up also very well. I think the thing is they can go to Embiid on the block, and who on the Celtics can really contend because Robert Williams is good, but he's not available. But if he's there, that's a body, but he doesn't have the bulk.
Yeah.
Embiid is large, not just tall. He's a large man. I think there's at least like a 30-40 pound difference between him and Robert Williams. So.
And Embiid just has that killer instinct right now. Like he can just turn it on and say, well, "I'm getting 40." He's averaging 33. He'll win another scoring title, and that's on him. But the thing is that he can pull guys away from the basket, and Robert Williams is a great rim protector, but can he guard guys on the perimeter? I've seen it sometimes, but Embiid's a whole different guy. So that's it for this episode. Thank you, Dom, for coming and joining us today, and would love to have you again. Yeah, I really appreciate you thinking of me, man. I love to be back.
Yeah, cool. All right. Until next time, again, like and subscribe for the video. All links are in the description. And until next time, be safe.